What's up, everybody? It's Andrew Indris at Extend Audio and with AEIOU Studios. I'm here to show you guys a quick rundown. I've got a X32 rack here set up. We're in the routing page. I got it hooked up to an X-Touch here. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to run over some basics of the routing tab, because I know it's the thing that throws a lot of people for a loop, especially in high stress, high pace, fast paced environments. So yeah. Just wanted to go over some quick stuff and then do some troubleshooting issues that people have had in the past. And yeah, so rock on, let's get to it. Hey, so today I want to talk a little bit about the Music Tribe X32 M32 series line of consoles. This is an X32 rack here in particular, but this little setup here should look pretty similar to what you're going to see on any kind of X32 or M32 console. I want to talk about specifically routing, because people will have issues with routing. They'll say, you know, why am I not getting all my, you know, my inputs? Why am I not getting this? Why am I not getting that? Well, or why am I not able to record? Or why, you know, you can have a whole myriad of issues, because I'd say that in particular with the M32 and X32 line of stuff, the routing system isn't all that intuitive, I think, as other consoles, maybe Allen and Heath stuff with or Abbott stuff. Anybody where you have a normal grid where it's, you know, 1-to-1 in a normal matrix looking kind of thing. Well, with this you have banks of 8 and this weird kind of layout system. And today I'm just going to try to maybe demystify a little bit of it for folks who may have had any questions about this kind of stuff or have faced these same kind of issues. So what I'm going to go over is some basics of routing. So we'll talk about the conceptually, kind of from a conceptual standpoint, how I like to think of things. So when I think about my input blocks, or how we're talking about this whole thing is called blocks. So input, AES, card, XLR, and then patch points is the next set of tabs with your patch out patch, aux patch, P16 patch, and user patch. This all kind of makes sense when you say it out loud, but I think when you try to do something practically, it kind of doesn't make as much sense. So what I like to think of conceptually is my input block is what shows up on the physical channel strips or console. Like, for example, this X32 rack, it's what shows up in the graphic user interface. So when I go over here and I'm looking at my different, you know, channels, and I want to bank through and look at, you know, channel 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what is happening when I go to my routing here is that's what's going to happen. This is what's going to show up within my routing. So my local 1 through 8 on the back here is going to show up on 1 through 8 in my user interface, my graphic user interface, my GUI. 9 through 16, same thing. And then on 17 through 24 of my graphic user interface, if I want that to come in from a snake via AES A50A port, then you go here and you select, you know, 1 through 8 and 9 through 16 on that digital snake box. So if that's what you want to come in on whatever bank of 8, 17 through 24, 25 through 32, 9 through 16, 1 through 8, you have to assign that. So if I say if I wanted, or AES50 port B, if I wanted a second snake connected via port B, channel 9 through 16 on that stage box, if I wanted to come in on 17 through 24 here, go down here, AES50B port, you know, B 9 through 16 there, and just click on it, and now that should be coming in if it's all plugged in properly and via AES channel port B, all that yada yada yada, or however you want it to be flexible. But that's kind of the thought process behind it. Moving on, AES port A. This tab I think of as conceptually what gets sent out to whatever device is plugged into AES port A. So this is going to be your output in regards to outputs. So if I wanted to, you know, send 1 through 8, you know, through, you know, on what's happening in my mixer here to get sent out through outputs, you know, 1 through 8 on the AES port A, and that's what would happen here. And then you can assign that. Or if you wanted to say what's getting recorded through channel 1 through 8 to go through those ports, you could go there and click that on your card. Talk more about card later. anyways, still going on conceptually. AES port B is what gets sent to whatever device is plugged into AES port B. So similar, kind of exactly same to A, just in regards to port B. Card. Now, how I like to think of this conceptually, and this will trip people up when they get to recording, is this is whatever gets sent to the card or USB recording expansion card. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be an expansion card, but what ships with most consoles, if you didn't get it like a newer X32 or M32 with the 2 SD card slots and the USB-B output port, then you're going to get the standard X-USB cheapo version of expansion port. It's not like Dante or whatever, but basically it's going to be a data transfer transmission device, basically a card that gets plugged in, and then whatever you designate here is what's going to get sent to that card to transmit data or receive data. So if you were to do over Dante, basically you're going to say this is what gets sent to those the card or the USB recording expansion cards. So if I wanted my local 1 through 8 to come in and get sent out to this to record on 1 through 8, then that's what's going to show up like in your DAW. When you open it up 1 through 8, it's going to be my local 1 through 8. Or on my DAW, it's going to 9 through 16 is going to be 9 through 16. But if I wanted that to be different, if I wanted to come through my Snake channels 1 through 8 and my first stage box plugged into AES50 port A, you come through here and you do that, for example. But I don't want that. I want it kind of set up normally. So if I was to want 32 channels into this and I had one Snake plugged in, I'm going to be having those come in on 17 to 24 to expand my 17 through 32 channels as my 1 through 8 and 1 through 6, 9 through 16, 1 through 16 basically on my other Snake or on my main Snake, my little DL16 or whatever. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what a card does. If you have a different kind of card, like a Dante, like I say, or Matty, or whatever card they offer, that's what's going to be getting sent out to that. XLR is what gets sent to the physical XLR outputs that are on the actual console. So on this console, my main XLR outs, 1 and 4 and 5 through 8, are going to be outputs 1 through 4 and outputs 5 through 8. Kind of explanatory, but it could be confusing. Moving on with patch out is what gets sent out via the graphic user interface, what designates what gets sent to the physical XLR outputs that are on the actual console. So this is basically like output routing, whereas, here with our outputs to Snakes, that's what's in reference to those, and our card for recording outputs, and then, on the console outputs. And then here is actually your mixed matrix, or whatever you want to say, basically your output assignment matrix. So you can choose all your outputs on the at the analog outputs or whatever, and whether it be on your Snake or whatever it's assigned to, or on your main local thing. Here in my example for my rack, it only has 8 outputs on it. If you had a full X32 or M32 console full size, it's going to have 16 outputs. But in a lot of people's cases, they may have a smaller footprint mixer. They have to go about it doing it this way. And then you can choose, what your mix bus or your main left and right or whatever you want to come out like that. Then aux is going to be what gets sent out of the aux outputs on the physical console ports. So this would be like your TRS or your 1/4 inch or AES EBU left or right, depending on what you got going on with your stage boxes. And you can assign whatever you want to each of those. Like if you wanted to send left and right out of an AES on a Snake or something, you could do it that way. Or if you wanted to send out to monitors for a DJ, you could say, you could make a mix in Mixbox 1 and go to, whatever aux out 1 and 2 and set it up like that. If they only had 1/4 inch input or output, however they wanted to do it, and they didn't have XLR for their monitor or whatever, you could do it that way. Moving on, P16 is going to be your Ultranet P16 Behringer personal monitoring system. This is how you designate the ins and outs of that and what gets assigned to what. You can bank in between different features if you have different, intelligent speakers made by the Music Tribe as well. Kind of fancy for being able to quickly integrate a system like that. And toggle between the two with a button like that. On our user assign page, this is a pretty cool thing that happened with a new firmware update. you can go in between and assign what you want with basically like a user predefined custom layer that you can then view. It's easier to kind of set up a customized workflow, and you can assign that from this page. So anyways, if you want to too long didn't read recap of what this is, I think conceptually how this can all make work is I'll just tell you. So how I like to think of it is my input block is what shows up on the physical channel strips or console, for example my X32 rack, and what shows up in the graphic user interface. A tab is what gets sent out to whatever device is plugged into AES port A, and then the same thing for AES B is whatever gets sent out to whatever device that's is plugged into port B or A is going to be what you're assigning here for your outputs. And then card is whatever gets sent to the card or USB recording expansion card device, however you want to think of it. If you had Maddie or I don't know if you had Dante, whatever kind of card you have. And then XLR is what gets sent to the physical XLR outputs that are on the actual console. Patch points out is what the out page is what gets sent out via the GUI, your user interface, what designates what gets sent to the physical XLR outputs that are on the actual console. aux is what gets sent out of the aux outputs on the physical console ports. And then P16, pretty self-explanatory, this is your ultranet, this is your personal monitoring page for assignment, and then your user page, which is, you can delve in pretty deep. There's a lot of tutorials online about that, how to set up your own custom defined user interface for a customized workflow. And that's basically a quick summary, but I wanted to run across it so basically give a couple examples of some troubleshooting issues that people have, like, oh, why am I not getting everybody has issues with why am I not getting, I'm not seeing anything, on my surface, nothing's showing up. I have a mic plugged into channel 1, but I'm not seeing it. Well, maybe you come into routing and you're like, well, I wonder, it's selected like this, and you're like, I wonder why it's not coming in on channels 1 through 8, where you're seeing it here on your channels 1 through 8 or whatever. You got channel and you can't see it. You might want to come to routing and say, oh, well, it's assigned to AES50B port on my 1 through 8, which would be like what you want to come in on your AES-B, like a snake maybe that's plugged into port AES50 port B, 9 through 16. But instead, if you want 1 through 8 on this device here on the X32 rack locally to show up on channels 1 through 8 in your graphic user interface, then you come here and you press that. Another common troubleshooting issue is like, oh, why am I not being able to send out to speakers on my snake? Why am I not being able to get that, my main left and right getting sent, and I have a snake, 300 feet away with connected via Cat5 cable or whatever. And you say, oh, I don't get it. Well, then maybe you come in here to this tab ASP for, A tab, and you're like, it's selected like this or something. You're like, oh, I wonder why I'm not getting it. I'm not getting anything. Well, maybe it's because you want to send out to your AES50 port A snake what is getting sent to your outputs on this console. So if you wanted to go here, output 1 through 8 and 9 through 16, that's what you probably want to be sending out. You want to be sending out your 16 different outputs sections. Most people don't want to be sending out other stuff to anything else. You can technically send, and over here you could send, if you had some way to send to AES50 port A to another set of snakes for outputs, you could send AES50 port A channel 17 through 24 outputs. You could send your card out, or et cetera, et cetera. So there's just like a limitless set of options, really, up to 48 different output options on AES50 port A and B. So basically, same kind of thing. AES, I think the AES thing kind of throws a lot of people for a loop sometimes, especially if this whole page gets futzed with. And then card, a lot of people would be like, oh, why am something not recording? I'm not getting in my DAW. I don't understand, why I'm not getting, I wanted to get, you might be like, I wanted to get channel 17 through 24, and I want to get 17 through 32 in on my card. So is this the way I do it? Maybe I can select, I want it to come in. I don't know. I think that people get confused with the grid and then be like, well, I want 17 through 24, so I'm going to select it here in this bank, and they don't really understand what these banks are all about. So if you see up in small lettering over each column here, if it's 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17, 24, 25 through 32. So what that's basically doing is saying, whatever is going to show up in your DAW or whatever your expansion card is being sent out, is what is going to be designated in these columns. So you say if like 1 through 8 on what you're seeing in your DAW, you could have it be 1 through 8 locally on here, or you could have it be AS50 port A, like if you're recording a snake and you wanted just to record the snake, the channels on the snake, then you could do 1 through 8 here. But oftentimes I tell people if they're probably recording exactly what they're doing on their board to write to what's in their DAW, then you probably just want to mirror what's happening in your card straight to your input tab. So that's also a quick way, like a quick fix oftentimes to tell people like, oh, why am I not getting what I got going here? Well, it's probably because your input is not matched to your card tab. Like your input tab is not matched to your card tab. So if you see here, my tab is basically set up exactly like my input minus the aux in column, because I don't have one here. XLR, some people could get confused with this, but I don't find people having troubleshooting issues with this. The output patch is kind of confusing thing too, but it's kind of self-explanatory in a way that you're assigning what outputs here are going to get sent to which outputs. So like if you had, you go to your output section and you say, whatever, you say you want, your aux1 to be going out, your mix bus, like your mix bus 1, you want it to go to a different thing than what its default assigned to mix bus 1 on output port 1 on this device. So if I wanted mix bus 1 to show up on, say, the XLR output port 4 on this guy here on the X32 rack, I could go down to output port 4, and then assign that to, mix bus 1 if I wanted to, or whatever. If I had, if I wanted port 4 to be my 9th mix bus for some reason, then you could do it that way too. Whatever your workflow, basically it's just saying that, whatever is happening in your graphic user interface here is is how it's going to send out to whatever actual physical outputs here. So like, yeah. Or if I have that backwards, sorry, I might have said that backwards. But like, this is your physical analog output, and these are your actual, what's getting sent to them. So you're saying, yeah, I shouldn't have even said any of that, but basically just correcting that, whatever. So blank here. Whatever is happening here is your physical outputs. This is what's going to get sent to them. So 1 is mix bus, 1. And then if you got, 1 through 6, most people like to do sort of 6 different mono monitor mixes. And then 7 and 8 will be your main left and right. So the ports on the X32 rack with a basic setup, you could have, 1 through 6 be your monitor sends for, for powered wedges on stage or something. And then, 7 and 8 are just going to be your main outputs to powered top somewhere in a small little club environment. So that's a basic rundown of all that, and with troubleshooting and everything. So that's just basically what I want to cover. I think a lot of people get confused in this page, the routing button here, and with all those different options. If you guys liked this video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe or do a thumbs up, and ring the bell notification, whatever you like. If you want me to see me make more videos like this, let me know down in the comments section what you want me to make. Yeah, so hope y'all have a good time and happy mixing. Peace.